Welcome to Mindful Me. I'm your host, Dr. Marga Zarraga, family medicine physician and wellness coach based in Greater Boston. This health and wellness show was born out of the needs I saw as a medical doctor. People are curious and are even demanding information and options on how to get healthier and, more importantly, to improve their quality of life. And quality of life is simply how you feel from moment to moment, minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day. It's my goal to highlight to you, our viewers at home, the knowledge and experience of various experts from both mainstream and complementary disciplines to inspire action in our communities in the areas of self-care and self-development, physically, mentally, and energetically. Today, we are back with Dr. Grace Perez-Lirio. This is part 2. So for those of you who haven't seen part 1, please catch it. Dr. Grace Perez-Lirio is an internist certified by the American Board of Internal Medicine and a fellow of the American College of Physicians. After her residency in NYU, Mount Sinai, she joined the local physician group in Needham. How lucky are we? She holds a faculty appointment at 2 prestigious medical schools, where she is the recipient of Harvard's Excellence in Tutorial Facilitation and was awarded as Outstanding Teacher in Competency-Based Apprenticeship at Tufts University School of Medicine. Dr. Perez-Lirio was here speaking as a telehealth fellow with Doximity, but she has linked this fellowship to a special niche area, a very important one to all of us. This is work-life balance. So outside of being a doctor, she is actually, she herself has applied this work-life balance at home, where she manages a family of 8, 3 kids, 3 dogs, and a husband. So Dr. Grace Perez-Lirio will be talking now about work-life balance. And I'm just so very interested on why you went that route in handling your telehealth fellowship. So what was going on there in your decision?
Thank you for having me here again. So there's been a lot of work on work-life balance for many years, even before March 2020. And even prior to that, we are a profession that's been overwhelmed and burnt out. So it's unfortunate to see that. During the pandemic, we all made it work, and I've seen a lot of really successful and kind doctors that have left their practice because they just couldn't keep up with balancing their life and their work. And I
think this is before or after the pandemic you're commenting this?
Before, there were people that were leaving, but after, I mean, I've seen droves of doctors that have left, and to my surprise, actually, that I felt that there's a lot of things that we can improve, but without having the voice or having to speak up as physicians, I think that we will stay the same. So I felt that it was very important for me to really understand, in my world, work-life balance, because we all live it every day.
And so what's this? I think, as you said yourself, in our world as doctors, but really everybody should be asking these questions and self-examining, not because they're going to get it right the first time around. It's a journey, and it's pairing being mindful, being mindful day to day about decisions that are supportive, that are nourishing to physical, mental, and energetic. So why don't you take us to the roots of it? Why, you mentioned about in this journey, you're looking at why it is that we work. Could you share something about your thoughts on that?
So I actually wanted to refer to this article from HBR, Harvard Business Review, back in 2015, where the authors had written, the reasons why we work, 6 reasons why we work. The first one is play, which is, you enjoy doing what you're doing. It's as if it's play for you. So that has a positive impact, right? The next one is purpose. Like if you, for example, are a teacher, you just know that you're there to change the life of a child. So that makes your presence and your job meaningful, purposeful. The third one is potential. Like if, for example, you are a teacher and you want to become a principal, I think that, you work every day for that reason. It motivates you in a positive way. there are three other reasons that I feel might not necessarily be positive in terms of how it justifies working. And the first one is emotional pressure. According to the authors, they said that if you have been if you have ever felt guilty because you're not doing something, that's emotional pressure. The other one is economic pressure. Like if, for example, you have a college loan and you need to pay for it, then that's one of the reasons why you work. Well, it's not a bad thing, but I think if you only have that reason to work at that job, I think you might want to start thinking about it. The last one is inertia. It's how the authors describe it is that you're going to work, and when you are asked why you're going to work, you're going to say, well, that's because that's what I did yesterday, and I'm just doing it again today. So it's almost like you are not able to explain why you're actually working. And I think that when you get to a point when you're at a job that's you're even confused yourself, I think it's time to start thinking. But I think the point is, if you know why you work, if you know the motivations of why you work, that might lead you to understand what to do next.
Yes. And to, again, because this show is about mindfulness, everything you just shared and walked us through is about, being in the moments where you're dealing with those 6 factors. So that was very helpful. And so let's get a little more personal. Why did you, in this point in your career, a chapter during this COVID era, decide to bring your energies to this fellowship and the work-life balance? Like, what are you hoping, is a vision from the work that's coming out of this?
So thank you. That's a really good question. And I want to just add that this work-life balance applies to everyone. You don't need to be a doctor. You don't need to be a nurse. Everybody, as long as you have a job, I think, or you're working, I think this is really applicable. But for me personally, I have a busy primary care practice, and I go to work 4 days a week, and I also operate on like an after-hours clinic on weekends. And I found myself that one year where I worked a lot, I didn't think that I gave my best to the people around me, because I was so focused on one thing that there was a real imbalance there. And the work-life balance concept is not really just you're balanced like this. Every now and then, it's a process. Every now and then you'll go this or you'll go that. But the fact is you're able to keep it so that not something goes too way up and not, so I think there was a point in my career where I felt like I was just so focused on one thing and I overlooked another thing. And I think that the pandemic made me more aware of what's important. And like many people, you think back, and this pandemic really changed our lives and affected us to our cores, and that you ask yourself, why am I working? And what is important to me? And really what's important is what's at home.
And so linking it to telehealth, it sounds like you want to explore what the association is between the two. Have you seen that telehealth has helped out work-life balance?
So that's an interesting question, because you might ask someone and they'll give a different answer. So in many ways, telehealth has really helped, because you're able to, for example, especially with Doximity, you can send a text to a patient. I can send a text to a patient. If I'm either running late or early, I can send them a text, and they know I'll text them sometime between 7 to 8. I can text them a link, and then they'll click on that link and they'll see me on the other side. So I think that, having that ability to, for example, you really need to see this one patient, but I really need to make dinner for my family, and I'll just tell them, in between this time, I will be calling you back. And so you're able to make it work. So I think that's, you can look at it in, again, you're balancing your patient, my patients need me, my family needs me. What is a healthy balance for that? So I think that I love that feature, especially with the Doximity dialer. But also, the disadvantage is like you said earlier, the telemedicine, bringing your laptop home and having to see patients at home, it's really, the boundaries have been cut Now they're at home with me. Right? I don't only take my charts home, I take the patients home. So I mean, I think overall it still is positive.
Yes.
that we have overcome that. But
What's this? Some of the things that I've seen myself to gain some of that work-life balance in relation to telehealth is I practically announced to the house, I'm going to be gone from this time to this time. So nobody can disturb me. And some of the comical things that happen while I'm in that space, I hear a basketball bouncing in the hallway. I hear the baby crying. So that's the part that is really challenging. However, once I'm done, I step into dinner. It's like a magic wand.
Yeah.
I walk into dinner.
Yeah.
And so definitely there are challenges, but I think anything that's new is, will be met with apprehension. But that's why we're having this chat, is if we talk about it, if we call it out, then the emotions of it become more manageable and smaller. Do you have any other examples? Very interested on what other physicians are sharing with you in that forum. So if you could just give one, because we're going to come back to it after break.
So examples, I think that some doctors have wish lists of what would work well, but there are a lot, you mentioned earlier about toolkits and tools.
Yeah.
A lot of these technology, these telehealth, they have a lot of features that we can really just use. Sometimes you just don't know how to use them or that they're even there.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to really know what you have in front of you or what you have in your toolkit and make sure that you know when to use it. So
we'll get back to that after these public service announcements.
Are you interested in adopting a dog, puppy, cat, or kitten? The Taunton Animal Shelter helps match pets with their forever families. The Taunton Animal Shelter is a volunteer-based home that has been located on West Water Street in Taunton, Mass. Since the early 90s. The Friends of the Taunton Animal Care Facility's mission is to assist in providing quality pet care and full support to adoptive pets and their families. There are many ways to meet all of the pets who are waiting for homes. You can go to tauntonshelter.petfinder.com, or you can visit the shelter at 821 West Water Street in Taunton. The shelter's visiting hours are Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m., Fridays 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., and Saturdays 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. If you're not interested in adopting a pet but would still like to help, the shelter is currently in need of disinfectants, bleach, paper towels, laundry detergent, trash bags, dry and canned pet food for kittens, cats, and dogs, and heartworm and flea and tick preventatives. Donations can be dropped off at the Taunton Animal Shelter. For more information on adopting a pet or donating supplies, visit the shelter, go to our website, tauntonshelter.petfinder.com, or give us a call at 508-822-1463. The shelter is very proud of the adoption success that it has had and its ability to add that special animal to local families. Saving one pet will not change the world, but surely the world will change for that one pet.
Welcome back to Mindful Me for our mindful quote of the day. Mindfulness is awareness without criticism or judgment. Jan Chosen Bays. We're back. So I think what I just read is very applicable because when anything is new, we are criticizing and we are judging, and that is very tiring and energy draining. So what we're doing right now is you are giving very good advice that, again, the same theme is happening here. If it's a tool, learn to use the tool. So take up from that point you were saying.
Yeah, so related to work-life balance is one of the things that I really feel is very important is know what's in your toolkit. or put good stuff in your toolkit that you know you can pull at any time. And I feel that we all have our own toolkits, we don't even know it. And if you are in a situation where you're really struggling, find that little trick or little tip that you think you can use so that you can overcome that difficult time. So, I mean, I'm talking about resiliency toolkit,
Yes.
which I think is very important, everybody should have.
Yes, and I think that tip is applicable to both a patient or a doctor. I wanted to go back to what you were saying of, I would say, an exodus that you witnessed during this pandemic, along the themes of people wanting to regain their sense of work-life balance in the medical field. But as we keep on saying in this show, it is not just in the medical field. Of course, the military comes to mind as well as a very strained profession. But then the pandemic just made this a little too hard to ignore for everyone to have that focus on how do we gain it in this chapter. And with that, what comes to mind as to what are the stories that are coming out of this exodus? Has anything come back to you in terms of colleagues or the forums that you're holding with physicians? Go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a lot of articles out there about physician burnout, specifically primary care, and that's the world I live in. And I think that it's important to understand what this means to the society, to the community. I think that so before the pandemic, this was already a problem, and the pandemic exacerbated this burnout issue within physicians. And there was a study that just came out that it's a $1 billion problem. If you have, due to the physician turnover, it costs us in excess of $1 billion. 260 million of that is attributed directly to burnout of physicians. That's a lot of money that's wasted, really, for every doctor that leaves primary care. They think that's about 86,000 excess per doctor that leaves. And I think that the real, it's not just the dollars and cents, it's really how that affects a patient. And there's another article, Deb Cohen out in Chicago, she wrote about her experience with her father, who the doctor left, and then he started to float around trying to look for the next doctor that he could get after his physician admitted to burnout. Yeah. And I think that's very sad to see that. And I think, a good friend of mine said, physician, heal thyself. I think this is a point in time, we're at that point that I'm in the business of preventing diseases for my patients, picking up on cancer early and things like that. Burnout is a serious disease. And I feel that we, as a profession, also owe it to our family, our patients, to maintain that work-life balance, whatever that means, whatever it takes to get that. Because I think it's a very important problem that you said that we can't be ignoring at this time.
I love how you said we have to understand how this affects our community, because what was coming to me in listening to you is we have a sphere of influence, all of us. So let's just focus on doctors. I think we were tossing around figures a while ago. A particular clinic can see up to, is it 200 visits a day,
week.
right?
A week.
A week.
No, a week.
A week. Oh, so 200.
No, a day.
No, it's
That's
a
right,
day.
a day. I'm sorry, I'm miscalculating.
Yeah,
a day.
200 people go through a space a day. And each physician, just looking at the medical field, impacts 200 people a day. All the well-being or the non-well-being of that team impacts 200 people a day, impacts their experience, impacts their next step. I have something I call the right next best step. Deciding on the right next best step of each patient for that 15-minute, 30-minute period they have in front of a doctor is impacted by a workforce that is saying we are strained, to say the least. And there's some very tragic stories. As you said, burnout is a disease. The guest before this said, dis-ease. There is no ease in burnout.
Yeah.
So, and how can you impart from a more deeper connecting level if your workforce themselves is seeking support for themselves? So, this show, this conversation hopes to spark or become a step in, like if there was a pebble walk, let this conversation be part of the pebbles that lead to answers and forums, more support, because I believe there is a social solution out there. It may need financial solutions as well, but I'm going to circle back to telehealth. If telehealth is becoming a tool that supports work-life balance in some physician lifestyles, could you comment if the reimbursements of offices like yourselves are equal or reasonable in terms of that service? Because it's taking up the time of a
So I
certain number
believe
of people.
it's similar, but definitely not the same as when your patients come in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So because there are some ancillary things that occur
Uh-huh,
when the patient walks in the door. You can do
Good to know.
finger stick and all that stuff. So I think I wanted to go back to what you said earlier about work-life balance, the toolkit. I think that, I mean, again, this is applicable. You don't have to be a doctor, you don't have to be a nurse. If you feel like you're getting to a point where you're burning out, there are resources in your, wherever your place of work. And I can tell you sometimes you just didn't need to maybe look at the HR website and see, maybe they have a mindfulness thing there, maybe they have some kinds of, they are there for the staff to make sure that their well-beings are being addressed. And so there are like a lot of like fun activities that your company or your institution might have that maybe you don't know yet. So I think that's just looking into that, asking around. There are some mental health services that are embedded in certain organizations or institutions that are available to their employees. And I think if you're able to avail of that, you know, that's one thing in your toolkit. So there are a lot of things that you can get, you know, from family, from friends, from employer. And I think the bigger question is, who is responsible for your health, your well-being, your balance? Who is responsible for it? And I think that ultimately we are all responsible for our balance, you know, work-life balance. And I think that our employers have some responsibility, but it's for us to look into that. And I think, you know, that would be important for us to know.
And I think from a mindfulness standpoint, we can always point to our environment, we can point to the pandemic, we can point at pro or not pro telehealth. But what you said is essentially looking within and feeling empowered that we can do something about it. Maybe not wait till you do feel the burnout, but the earlier the better. Like having regular practices, from reading mindful quotes is why we have that section in this show, to engaging in a weekly social activity, whatever community, whether religious or non-religious, is something, but habits essentially that could be formed and availing of those. I want to support what I'm seeing in the community. I've attended a mind-body medicine conference in Boston, and they have cited organizations starting what is called as wellness officers, if I recall that right.
Yep.
Wellness officers are now existing in organizations, and if your organization doesn't have one, volunteer, like be the change you want to see in the world, right? To initiate, I don't care if you play a Zoom of somebody that's doing breath work, it's something, it's a pause, as you said. The empowered mindset, I think, is what we're showing the audience today, is what can I do if you're in that position. The second thing that I wanted to share in this conversation is there was there was a professor in that Mind Body Medicine conference who would lead mindfulness activities among medical students. And the medical students gave feedback that they preferred not to be given a one structured way. They would like a choice. And so from that learning, if we were to spread that to the general population, if you are a person who likes choice, which most of us, I think, like the democracy of our own experience, right? Then study the choices. It is mirroring what you said, Dr. Perez-Lirio, a while ago, where you said, if this is a tool, study the tool. If there are choices for you on how to feel good from moment to moment, minute to minute, hour to hour, then look at the choices and keep on asking yourself the question until you make a decision so that you can feel good. Yesterday, I was talking to one of my wellness partners because I co-refer within my town. And one person said, what's this? I felt good when she spoke to a practitioner. I felt good, but it sounded more of like a sales pitch. So, in other words, there was some emotional trigger in her that she didn't like the sales pitch. So even if she had that relaxation response kick in, she was triggered. So what I guess I want to say is, if the audience can relate to this, if something has turned you off with the person or the circumstance, a snowstorm, whatever it is, just move on to the next choice, right? Just keep at it. Don't give up. So if you'd like to just share a few words before we wrap up, this is such an important topic, and I'm just so honored that you are opening this up with me for the audience. So any last advice?
Yeah, so I wanted to just share my slide on work-life balance. And I think that we all need to understand that this is not a one and done. This is not, it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be simple steps. So, ask for flexibility. That's one thing. You have to learn to say no. You have to practice self-compassion and measure your capabilities and not overextend yourself. You invest in relationships. You carve out time to unplug. And that's, that's my favorite part. When you're unplugged, that's the best part. Cultivate resistance, take breaks, use your lunch break, communicate what's going on. Do not disturb and prioritize your health, and use the tools that are available to you.
This is a very rich slide. I hope the audience pauses and appreciates it. Thank you, Dr. Perez-Lirio, for being here. This has been your host, Dr. Marga Zarraga. Look for Mindful Me and previous shows on Vimeo, Facebook, or YouTube under Dr. Marga Zarraga, Mindful Me. To comment, the email is mindfulmetv@gmail.com, and leave us a voicemail at 617-874-1234. We hope you join us next time for another episode of Mindful Me.